one of my favorite topics to talk about is scientific method. I'm being very sarcastic. I don't like talking about the scientific method because it's abused so often. In fact, I think that I'm going to start off by reading to you an excerpt from a book by George Zaden called Ingredients. I suggest you either listen or you pause it and read, because if you try to listen while reading it, usually it just is distracting and it's hard to absorb the information. They built a bridge from the land of not knowing, shrouded in mist and shadow, to the land of almost certainly knowing. This bridge is built from thousands of experiments and studies, each a dense brick, supporting and being supported by others without holes between them, together spanning the full width of the gulf of ignorance. We haven't talked about every single brick, not by a long shot, but hopefully all the bricks we have talked about and the logical mortar that binds them together give you a reasonable idea of what it looks like when a group of scientists well and truly know something. Unfortunately, as we've seen before, scientists are really bad at naming things, and this is no exception. Instead of something cool like Bridge of Truth, scientists decided to name these bridges theories. As you might already know, the word theory means something very different in science than it does in English. In English, a theory is usually a flimsy explanatory thought generated by an observation or two. For example, you wear a red shirt and win a golf tournament. Theory, red shirts make you better at golf. But in science, a theory is a solid and well-constructed bridge of truth. Gravity, atoms, evolution, all of these are scientific theories unlikely to collapse if you wear a red shirt and lose. I'm not a fan of the word theory for two reasons. One, it has two exactly opposing meanings in science versus English. Solid in science versus flimsy in English. And two, the English definition has already won. Let's not sugarcoat this last point. To most people, the word theory means crazy idea that I just pulled out of my butt. So from this bridge of truth, we can sort of envision that when we're talking about scientific theories or bridges of truth, it's a way of constructing a bunch of facts and experiments and evidence that link from what we don't know over to this side where we pretty much know everything. And so these theories are not flimsy at all, but very substantial. For an example, one that George Zaden was talking about in this book, he was talking about the scientific theory that cigarettes cause cancer, and these are all bricks that he had been discussing. Specific studies where they had been able to determine each one of these bricks. That cigarettes contain carcinogens, and that those carcinogens do get in your body, and once there, they do react with they chemically react with DNA, and that's once it reacts with the DNA, it screws with the processes like copying, and your body will try to fix the DNA. And occasionally the fix results in a mutation. Sometimes it works fine, sometimes it doesn't. And if you have mutations accumulating in your DNA, that can cause the genes that control cell growth to put cells on the path to cancer. And some of those cells become cancerous cells. So this is how you get a scientific theory that cigarettes cause cancer. And again, theory may sound flimsy, but it's really not. So what does the textbook say about the scientific method? So in the textbook, we talk about the steps of the scientific method, talking about observations, formulating hypotheses from them, performing experiments to then test those hypotheses that then turn into theories. So they're not different from what I'm saying. I just sometimes think that in getting into semantics of what is an experiment and a hypothesis and what's a theory and what's a law, we can kind of get lost in the weeds as to the importance of scientific theories. So a natural law, so a theory, a hypothesis is a not well supported explanation of the observations. A theory is a very well supported explanation of the observations, and a law is more of a summary or a pattern of observations. So it is something like, after many observations, gas pressures seem to increase with temperature. So it doesn't explain anything, but it sort of states a pattern. Okay, so we will work this practice in class, but I want you to try labeling the following as a theory hypothesis, law, or a fact or observation. So some people say facts, some people say observations. And so I've listed a few of them here. Some of them are a little bit tricky because it depends on how much you know about these things, but we can start to think about why we would classify something as a hypothesis or a theory or as a law.